TGIF Chicago, you are locked into the voice of the Chicago sports fan, Chicago sports podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. Friends, thank you so much for kicking off your weekend with us. We are your boys, Cleet Stoop Campbell, along with the great Sean Lugo and the great American DJ Matt Cooper, afternoon drive man and program director for the Knoxville Wolf. Fellas, what's the good word? How we doing?
Living the dream every day.
It's great, man. This is a good time of the year. Baseball season. Got the draft coming up in a couple of weeks. It's awesome.
Absolutely. You're not kidding, Coop, my friend. The Windy City Sports Scene right now, friends, as Coop said, is more crowded than a Caitlin Clark autograph signing. The Cubs are trying to make an early move in a tied National League Central race and survive a brutal April schedule. The Bulls are trying to prove they are more than just an afterthought in the Eastern Conference play-in tournament. And the Bears are T-minus 13 days for the most important draft of the 21st century. And our Chicago White Sox, they are just praying for a day without a serious injury to their roster. Folks, we will cover all this and much more tonight on an action-packed Monsters Friday Night Lights edition of Chicago Sports Podcast. We are proudly brought to you, friends, by TC's World of Wonders, Bridges Scoreboard, Serendipity Ice Cream Parlor, Underdog Fantasy, Worth Stadium Club, Budget Jet Cars, great sponsors. Be sure to check them out. Hit that like button on YouTube, friends, and subscribe to us. So much big stuff going on. Our good friend, Big Game, Brandon Duplessis, checking in along with Dustin Jones. And I know Dustin and Brandon wanted, like a lot of Chicago fans, fellas, are wondering what are the Chicago Cubs in 2024? The season now, you can say we're 12 games in. We've kind of reached the bottom of the first, guys. I mean, and so far, the Cubs, fellas, are playing like they did last year, just a shade better than 500. Now, if it continues like this, the season continues like this, Sean and Coop, one thing is for certain, we're all in for a wild ride. So far, the Cubs have dropped 2 out of 3 games to the defending World Series champion Texas Rangers, got 2 terrific starts from Japanese pitching professor Shota Imanaga, who USA Today's Gabe Lakes calls the real deal. They outplayed the billion-dollar Los Angeles Los Angeles Dodgers, taking 2 out of 3. They blew an 8-run lead against the San Diego Padres, and their bullpen has clocked more hours than a lone man at a 24/7, 7-Eleven. So, fellas, let's start with you, Sean. What grade do you give the Cubs through the season's first 2 weeks?
Well, if it wasn't for the bullpen, they'd have an A+ at this moment. I like what I'm seeing, though, to start the season. I know that they have a couple deficiencies in that bullpen, but the rotation, as soon as it gets healthy, as soon as we get back with Steele, and I think we're going to take a big step forward. Obviously, going to have to dive deep somewhere, make a trade, maybe into that minor league system to shore up the back end of that bullpen. But we're kind of where we were last year, and unfortunately, Jed didn't do enough. He let us down over that 3 months and not shoring up that bullpen.
Coop, Sean brings up a good point, too. The Cubs obviously were very conservative with how they improved this team from last year when they missed the playoffs by a single game and finished 83-79. Is it fair to say, as the great Dennis Green would say, the Cubs are who we thought they were going into the season now, 12 games in?
It's been weird. I can't explain it because they looked so good against it. I like the way they played against the Dodgers, and then they had a meltdown against the Padres, and I'm like, that was very up and those 6 games alone were so up and down. But kind of to Sean's point, I thought going into this season, I like the lineup, and I said even before the season started, Cleet, we were talking about like impact players. I said Christopher Morel for me is the guy that I think that's the guy I'm going to be looking at. That's the guy that is if they're going to go anywhere, he's the one that's going to have – they're going to need his bat is what I'm trying to get at. I don't think they did enough of their bullpen, though, in the offseason. I don't. And I think that's played out so far. And it's going to be interesting. So I saw they called up Keegan Thompson today. Did I see that correct? Yeah. So they kick up. So I think that's going to be interesting how they play this when they start getting some of their guys back. Tyon and Steele, and how they're going to build up this bullpen. They're trying to find their way right now, and the way they've started, that's not the way you want to start the season. And they want to, I think, but that's the great thing is you have time to do this now since it's so because you can see the bats are there. You could see the lineup and on some certain players that have caught my attention, like Morel and Happ. But it's going to be that bullpen, man. So if they don't get that fixed or they try to find certain roles, I think it's going to go the way it's gone so far.
Yeah, great point, Coop. And Sean, like Coop's saying, this is the biggest liability on this team without question. We saw last year the Arizona Diamondback bullpen mid-July was a train wreck. And what they went out and did is they completely sent that entire bullpen pretty much packing, brought in pretty much an entire new core of firemen. So do you get the sense that we could see the Cubs, we could see Jed Hoyer, Carter Hawkins, you know, going to Craig Counsell saying, okay, what pieces do you need in this bullpen? And obviously, the bullpen as we see it right now, Sean, I would assume, do you think by the trade deadline is going to be a completely different looking unit?
Absolutely. Even if we're bringing up kids from the minor leagues, but I definitely think they're going to be making some moves. I know Riley Thompson's doing well down there. They just called up Keegan Thompson, who's coming off. He's had 6 innings so far, I believe. He had his first game of the year. He got rocked, but put together 5 solid innings. So we'll see. He's got a little bit of a low velo, so I don't know if he could be a high leverage guy, but hopefully for right now, he's just going to do because we don't got much coming out of there. But yeah, I definitely think I don't think Kyle, Mr. Kyle from Chicago's very own podcast here, me and him have been going back and forth about Azalea for a while, but I think he's winning an argument on me because he seems to be coming out of the gates really, really flat. I still have faith in Hector Neris, but outside of that, I think they're going to need some new high leverage guys and hopefully some guys with some velo.
Yeah, you're right, Sean. And the thing about, I think, with both Hector and Adbert is neither one of those pitchers, neither one of their signature out pitches is working for them right now. And I think that's why we see them falling behind in counts and leaving stuff up in the zone. But unfortunately, I think the biggest letdown, guys, and this really for me is heartbreaking as a longtime Cubs fan. I'm sure for you, Sean, you know how important he was. But let's address the elephant in the room.
I know where you're going.
The most storied pitchers in recent team history has been their biggest disappointment for the first 2 weeks. We're talking about the professor formerly known as Kyle Hendricks. He's lost his fastball. He's lost his sinker. And basically he's forgotten how to get guys out. He has a 12 ERA, fellas, through 2 starts. He seems destined, Sean and Coop, to be designated for assignment sooner rather than later. Let's get you started. I want to get your thoughts too, Coop. But Sean, as we know, Kyle's the last remaining member of the Cubs' curse-breaking 2016 World Series championship team. Still, last guy out, still on the roster. But like the great Jake the Snake Arrieta, he's seemingly become mortal overnight. Oh, yeah. How sad is it for you as a lifelong Cub fan to see him struggle like this?
It's heartbreaking. It really is, because honestly, I thought his career, or I shouldn't say his career if he wanted to still pitch, but I thought it was over last year. I mean, he really kind of fell off last year. When the Cubs re-signed him, I kind of was like, well, what are we doing here? Why are we bringing him back? And we're looking at this byproduct that we have now, and it's painful. I mean, watching him the other day against San Diego was just, we can't do this anymore. He's got to go. And, I think they were maybe trying to get by, waiting for Tyon to get back, maybe see if they can get Ben Brown in there. But I think we might have to speed up this process. And coming off today, actually, Tyon actually started today, and I think he pitched 3 innings, and he looked pretty well. So he should be back with the ball club soon. We got Steele coming back. Yeah. If we do happen to bring Hendo back, maybe we can bring him in some non-high leverage situations.
Yeah, good point, Sean. And Coop, you've watched Kyle Hendricks. I mean, you saw him, just the absolute bulldog he was. I mean, people forget Game 7 against the Indians. He was throwing a 1-hit ball before he got the worst early hook in the history of the game from John Madden. But as Sean says, do the Cubs have an obligation not only to the fans, Coop, but also to the younger pitchers who've been out pitching Hendricks, guys like Ben Brown, like Sean said, Javier Assad, Jordan Wicks? Do they have an obligation to cut Hendricks as soon as possible and give this team a better chance to win every 5th day than what Hendricks is giving them right now?
Absolutely, they do. It's Craig Counsell's team, man. He's the new manager in town, so it's his team. It's the way he wants it to be built. And listen, I love it. This kind of not so much. It kind of reminds me of Jose Abreu leaving, but not to this sort. When Jose Abreu left the White Sox, we could kind of see his slugging going down a little bit at that last year. He still put up a decent year, but as a Sox fan and as a free agent, I'm like, man, I don't know if you pay a 3-year, 4-year contract for this guy that looks like he's starting to lose, and it looks like they made the right move. They don't make a lot of right moves, but I think they made the right move on that, as he's just not the same player in Houston right now.
Yeah.
And I kind of see the same parallels, but this is a whole different team. And I think when I watch Kyle Hendricks, when you watch him pitch, he's a soft contact hit, like the soft contact hitter. Like you're looking for the soft contact when he's on the mound. That hasn't happened this year. If you watch him pitch, it's been all hard smashed. Like I feel like he's just getting rocked. Like some of the hits this guy has given up is something you don't see. It's uncharacteristic for him. And I feel like it's just all the innings that have caught up to him. He had the injury, and it's sad because, I'm a White Sox fan, but boy, I love watching him pitch. There's certain players that I always like to go out of my way to watch, and he was one of them. For those years from 2016, 2017, 2018, anytime I saw him on the mound, I would go to my MLB package and put the Cubs game on right away just to catch him. And it just stinks because you see it now, and it's just the further you get along in your career, man, it just starts catching up to you.
It is. Yeah.
If I may too, he has had some really tough lineups to start against with the Rangers.
Yeah. And here's the defense. Yeah, we're playing the Dodgers and Padres. Yeah.
Yeah. But Sean, like you said though, Sean, he's never been a high velo guy. But what he did so really well in his career is his location. I mean, he was pinpoint, his ability to change speeds, even if he's going from 88 to 92. I don't want to say he was Greg Maddux, but he was the closest
Pretty close
to a painter, to an artist, especially on the corner, Sean. And it's funny. Is that where he's struggling the most right now? He just doesn't seem he has an idea of how to paint those spots in the strike zone like he was able to 5 years ago.
Yeah, 100%. The ball's definitely not getting there. It's like laying flat, staying right over the plate, and these guys are just driving it back into the gaps at 110 miles per hour. I mean, unfortunately, like I said, I thought we said goodbye last year at the end of the season, and I knew coming into this year, this is kind of what I expected, unfortunately, and I hate to say that because I do love the guy, but sometimes you're cooked, and it looks like he's cooked, man.
Yeah, it's a shame because let's see, they picked up the option. I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I think it was $16 million. And, I think part of that was maybe as kind of insurance, after the Marcus Stroman opt-out, which, man, that was a blessing in disguise. I know he's off to a good start, but I don't believe that for a second, fellas. We know how Marcus does in the second half of seasons. But it was just money. It seemed like for them being as frugal as they were, off-season wise, that $16 million you could have used to get 2 solid relievers.
Well, I'll tell you this. At that point, the guy that kills me the most is, well, first off, we traded Dylan Cease for Jimenez and Quintana. That was a big mistake back then. And then you had a chance to fix that mistake this offseason. The Cubs should have went hard after him. And we're probably not even having this conversation, especially with Steele being down right now.
Yeah. And we're talking about we're in a situation now where we have 3/5 of the rotation that are second-year pitchers or rookies. Coop, how long can the Cubs keep going like this? Because like Sean says, this schedule, we start going into division next month, but you just look at the rest of April. It's no walk in the park. We got 3 with the Mariners this weekend, and we still got 3 with Boston coming up here before the end of the month as well.
It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because I think the NL Central looks a lot better than I thought. And I think they're very like I don't know. I watched the Reds and White Sox here a little bit earlier today. And Clete, we talked about this last year when I lived in Louisville. When I saw all these players that were playing for the Reds being called up one after another, and I'm like, dude, you got to keep your eye on this De La Cruz and Encarnacion.
You called them before anybody, Coop.
And now they're all up with the Reds, and I'm like, that's a great offensive club, man. Now I don't know how they're pitching because their starting pitchers or pitching in general is a little bit, but they can hit, man. And I like the way the Brewers have played. I know Christian Yelich went out today, but he's been the Christian Yelich of 3 years ago. I think the Central is going to be pretty tough. So I think it's going to be important to get these guys back for the Cubs as soon as they can. I mean, be healthy, get Steele back in their tie-on. And I think the other one that I think has really hurt them is Merriweather going out too.
Yes.
And that's key, man. When he comes in for high leverage situations, man, he gets the job done, and it's hurting them right now with him not being in there.
Yeah. Yeah, so like he says, this is not the NL Comedy Central anymore. I mean, this is a division. Everyone said at the start of the year, 85 wins could win it. Is that still your opinion, or do you think that this division might be a lot tougher than we even thought going in?
Hmm. That's tough because I don't like, to Coop's point, the pitching outside of the Cubs, if they correct this bullpen, I don't really think the Central is that great.
Yeah.
I mean, the Pirates are off to a little bit of a hot start, with their pitching, but we saw that last year before they fell off the cliff in May.
Exactly. Yeah, they just love to tease their fans with these hot opening starts that just kind of hit that ball.
Yeah, you tell my girlfriend that.
Yeah. Yeah. I tell you what. But yeah, you look at it. I mean, the Cubs 7-5 right now, right around third or fourth in the division. Since he's playing well, Milwaukee, I think just a testament to how well that organization develops talent, that they've found a way to get to the division lead, even after 12 games. And we know it's early, fellas, but it just seems like you said, even as weak as this division is, Sean, if the Cubs don't fix these bullpen woes, they're going to have a hard time getting 85 wins in the top of the Central.
Something about the Brewers really fast. I think that we lose sight of. Pat Murphy was with Craig Counsell for a very long time, and if the Brewers were gonna go into a full rebuild mode, they would have blew this whole thing up, and they didn't. So they kept this right hand man. So they have a lot of the same principles and the same type of styles that they've kept in place there. So it's not a surprise to me that they started off. I still think that's a good team.
Absolutely. Yeah, and this kind of goes back to what you're talking about. Here's Murphy talking to USA Today Sports guys this week. I think this division has gotten a bad rap these last few years. All these teams are playing to win this year, that's for sure. You've got to respect what they've done, what they put in their teams, what they've added. I think it's going to be a war. It's beautiful. And look, it's not going to be one of the most, I don't think it's going to be the 93 NL West race between the Dodgers and Giants. But I do think it's going to be a battle, fellas. I think it's going to be entertaining all the way to the finish. But the point you made, Sean, is the fact is, if the Cubs can somehow get figure out their bridge guys and then get the ball to a shutdown closer, this division's right there for this Cubs.
I would say, correct me if I'm wrong here. If the Cubs can get that shutdown closer, and you have Merriweather with Alzolay, the back end of your bullpen, and Neris, let's not forget about Neris. But you get those three with a back end closer, all of a sudden the Cubs are deadly. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Is he the closer though? Is that are they going to have to get a closer?
They're going to have to. No,
because I don't think he is, man. I think he's a good pitcher, but I don't think he's that shutdown closer that they're going to need if they're going to make that playoff push. That they're going to have to look for the trade deadline.
Yeah. Hey, guys, speaking of a closer, I want to get both of your thoughts on this. Because you bring up a good point. I mean, we've had a closer by committee for some years. We've had a revolving door of closers ever since we made the decision to part ways with Adoldis Chapman following the World Series championship run. We didn't want to pay him what he wanted. He goes back to the Yankees. But, in hindsight, there were a lot of things I think that made the Cubs a one-hit World Series wonder, Sean and Coop. But for you, Sean, for me, that's number one. The fact that we let him walk. We bring in Wade Davis from the Royals in 2017. He lasts 1 year.
Yep.
We give up Jorge Soler to get him. Has that been the biggest reason why that this team hasn't been able to return to the heights of success they had from 2015 to 2017?
Yeah, a closer's been one of the big reasons. I mean, obviously, they had David Robertson here, who was pretty solid, and we were able to trade him for Ben Brown. But outside of that, we haven't had a closer here. Alzolay was kind of jolted into that spot last year, and he did all right for the short time he was there. It was 22 or 25, I believe, in save opportunities. But I saw the other day when they brought him in the eighth inning. I text Kyle right away. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. The guy can't get 6 outs. I mean, it's just not in his DNA. So, the back end, the closing situation for the Cubs, which I honestly thought going into this offseason would be the number one thing they would address. And I know there was a lot of chatter about trading for Claus out of Cleveland. and nothing came to fruition. So that tells me right there, if they were actually in negotiations for a top end closer, they don't believe in Alzolay either.
Yeah, they've definitely opened up the door to it. Hey guys, keep those great comments coming. Jay Grizz, thanks for checking in. Dustin Jones, you are watching the voice of the Chicago sports fan, ladies and gentlemen. Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. We've got Sean Lugo, the Great American DJ, Matt Cooper in the house. Hey guys, let's get to a question that Dustin's asking right now. Oh, when you look at that potential closer right there, who might be available, who won't cost you, half of the Iowa Cubs to get. Sean Coop, is there anybody out there right now that makes sense for the Cubs this early in the year?
There's a couple of guys I keep an eye on. I think by the trade deadline, I'm going to be interested to see where Kylie Jansen, that used to be on the Dodgers, who's now on the Red Sox. I don't think the Red Sox. I don't know where they're going to be at by the middle of the season, but that's a name I would keep an eye on. But the guy I like a lot on the Washington Nationals, Kyle Finnegan, I think is a really good closer for them. And the Nationals, the Nationals are going to be very good in probably 2 years. You could see that coming with that team, but I still think they're going to be a year or two away before they're very competitive. So I wonder if that's a guy they would probably move by the deadline. But I'm a big fan of his. I think he's a very good player.
Yeah. Hey, our good buddy Jay Grizz talks about Cade Horton. Cade Horton's an exciting guy, Sean. 22 years old. He could bring it. Is it a situation where could this be the year that Cade Horton gets his call to the show full time?
I've heard by July possibly, but if we have a solid rotation, we got still get a little seasoning on that steak. I don't see a reason that we got to rush him up here. He definitely looks like a front end closer of our near future, or a front end starter, of our near future. He's got some nasty stuff and definitely off to a good start this year, but. Maybe come July, if we're still hurting like this in the rotation, because like we said, Kyle Hendricks can't stick around for this.
Let's look at the Drew Smiley situation. Smiley's made a career out of being that stretch guy where you can, like a Mike Montgomery guy, a guy you can put in any spot and he can deliver. At this point of his career, and I keep going back to that near perfect game he had last year where Jan Gomes unfortunately, runs into him, rolls it up. He hasn't been the same guy since. Is really where he's at still the best place for him? Is he not really an option to go back into the rotation?
Go ahead, Coop.
Yeah, I think he's kind of there until they start getting people back healthy here. So I think, like I said, I think once they get Steele and Tyon back and get back into that rotation, it's going to see how the rest of that bullpen filters off. Now, he could, so I still think he has a role on this team to be that long relief. If they're out of games or they need somebody to come in for a couple of innings. So there is a role for him, but I think you got to be careful at the same time, as you can see where that bullpen is right now. I think first off, anything is possible for this bullpen right now at this point. I think you got to try anything and everything what they've gone through so far. But when they get all their guys back together and they start trying to figure this out, there is a role for him. I just don't think that you don't want him in those high leverage situations on like a 1-run game where you're bringing them in or getting them in when they're getting them in to play like the Dodgers in the 8th inning.
Yeah. If there's one thing for certain, and that bullpen is open for business without question.
I will say to Coop's point though, really quick, he has been doing pretty well as a long reliever coming in situations with high pitch count. So I definitely think there's still a spot for this kid on the or for this older gentleman on the team.
Yeah, absolutely. We all know the guy's a warrior. He's a bulldog. I agree. He's a guy to keep around. Sean, you just talked about Talion maybe possibly coming back soon. He's the guy. I think even more than Hendricks, because of the fact of what we're paying him, how bad he was for 2/3 of the season last year. I think he's the guy. And I know there's still a ton of money left in that deal. I think it's 2 years and $32 million, I think, left after this year. But for you, is Talion that guy? We talk about when you look at the mid to back end of that rotation, is he the guy who's really got to step up and deliver not an all-star caliber season, but at least a 4 ERA type season for this team to have consistency in the rotation?
100%. And you know what? Over his career, he's been that guy. I think last year was kind of an outlier. Maybe he was injured. I don't know. But he's been a solid – I think he's been a 386 pitcher up until last year. That's what I was expecting to get when they signed him. But they also signed him, and he doesn't put the ball on the ground. He puts the ball in the air. So that's a little bit of a problem at Wrigley Field on at some points. But I still do think he could be a solid part of this rotation, especially if you can slip him in that 4 or 5 role. I think he could be all right for us still. I like Tyon, man. I really do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, let's hope he can regain that form with the Yankees. Coop, let's go to the Japanese professor, Shota. And Minyaga has delivered the greatest rookie performance ever in his first 2 starts by a Chicago Cubs rookie starting pitcher. I mean, you're talking about outdoing some of the all-time great Cubs rookie seasons by pitchers. I mean, talking about guys like Mike Harkey, guys like Kerry Wood. Shota, particularly when the scouting report gets out on him around the league, can he keep up this consistency that he's shown through his first 2 starts, Coop?
Well, I think that's the question. Whenever you have anybody coming overseas like that, how are they going to adjust? How is the rest of the league going to adjust to them? And you've seen it. I mean, outside of Shohei Ohtani, who's just on another level compared to anybody in the league. But you look at like some of the other examples, like. From what I've seen from him so far, I think he's looked great. Like I think between his command and just he's got that confidence. Like I see that confidence when I've seen him pitch a couple times. The couple times I've seen him pitch on the mound, and you could see that with him, and you could see that he's pitched in those type of games when he was pitching in Japan, and what he's doing for the Cubs right now. So I have confidence that he could keep this. Now, do I think the league's going to come and adjust to him? Yes, I do. Eventually, I do. But I don't think there's going to be a major drop off with that. I think he's going to continue. He'll continue to build on his confidence, and especially when Steele comes back, and then you get some of these injuries come back when teams start preparing more for like a guy like Justin Steele. I think it's going to be harder for these teams to compete against him.
Yeah, the thing about Shota is we've been talking about, John. Here's another situation. He's a low velo guy. Everything's about changing locations, mixing speeds. And I've been impressed. I think the thing he's blown me away with, Sean, is his control. I mean, that you look at that opener against the Colorado, 9 strikes, 0 walks, 3-hit ball. I mean, if he keeps having control like this, are we looking at a guy who could possibly do the unthinkable, win 14, 15 games in his rookie year?
I think it's possible, but I also want to say pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the negative guy here, but against the Rockies, if that wind's not blowing out, we might be having a completely different conversation.
That's a good point.
He might have hit 4 or 5 balls out of the yard. And you know what? Hey, you got to play to your conditions. He did play to his conditions, and he pitched very well. So, I mean, you take that. The thing I'm taking away from him is this energy he's bringing. When Morel hit that grand slam, their little theatrics in the dugout, jumping around like giddy schoolgirls, getting those big strikeouts and pumping his fist in his second start. And I'm just like, look at this guy. He's loving this. I mean, I'm loving what he's bringing here.
Yeah, absolutely. Him and Christopher Morel play this game with such joy, and we need more of that in baseball. And you're right, it's been infectious. It's great to see that filter through the clubhouse. All right, fellas, let's talk about, before we wrap up with the Cubs, let's look at this April schedule because we're not out of the woods yet. I mean, this team, I want to get both of your thoughts. This is as tough as an opening stretch for a Chicago baseball team as I can remember. I mean, you just got one playoff caliber team. You've already had 6 games against. We will have 6 games against the 2 World Series teams from last year before April's over. What for you will be a good opening month record for the Cubs? What will constitute a successful April against this type of schedule, fellas?
500 for me.
maybe a little bit over 500. Yeah.
I would take 500 because I would have took over 500 if we didn't lose Steele.
Yeah.
Losing Steele, I'll be happy with 500 because, I mean, this is a murderer's row.
Yeah. I mean, literally, your only off day is an off day. And, it's just, taking 2 out of 3 consistently here through April 30th is going to be difficult. This weekend's important. If they can get out of Seattle with 2 out of 3, I think that will be good. Big game, Brandon Duplessis. Yeah, it absolutely is brutal, Brandon. So it's like you say, fellas, it's a marathon and sprint as we all know. But yeah, if 500 ball with what they're facing would be big. Early on, it looks like top second Cubs and Mariners are scoreless. Our good friend Cheryl Childers, let's call her Scoreboard Cheryl, keeping us up to date. Let's get a win tonight, 129, 127 over the Wizards. We'll be talking about them folks here in a few moments, but we do have to go to the other side of
No,
this.
we don't. No, we don't. No, we don't.
Coop, we got to be fair. We got to be fair. Equal time. Cubs, Sox. Yeah, I hear you, Coop. I feel for you. And I know this is painful for you. We are not trying to put poor Saul in open wounds. But as you can imagine, folks, as the White Sox injury woes turn, we have more updates for you. Jan Moncada, maybe the most snake-bitten player in recent Major League Baseball history. Listen to this, folks. He's played 42% of all games for the White Sox since 2022. Now word coming out that he will be missing 4 to 6 months, out at least until the All-Star break, with a left adductor strain. Running to first base. Lots to break down here, but let's talk about this, Sean. For whatever reason, why can't this White Sox great young contingent of Moncada, Luis Robert, and Eloy Jimenez, why aren't these guys stay healthy?
That's a really, really great question. I honestly think when they first put this class together, as a diehard Cub fan, I'm like, oh my God, we're looking at a White Sox dynasty here.
Yeah. Thinking about that 5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, I mean, none of them can stay healthy. I mean, I don't know if it's just training, poor training staff. It's a mystery. I mean, it's really a mystery. I don't know. Coop, do you have any insight to what's going on the south side there?
Ooh, boy, what's sad? It's sad because if you look at all three of those injuries, it was all of them running to first base.
Yeah,
and I don't know. And the funny thing is, to me, it looked like Moncada looked like in really good shape going into this year. Jimenez looked okay, but is it something that they're doing? I mean, we could sit here and blame everything on their training staff and they got the right player. I don't know it's necessarily more on that compared to the players and how they take care of themselves in the offseason. I don't know the answer. But what I think is disappointing, because listen, when they blew everything up last year, you knew it was done. This team was going to rebuild and do what they could to get these young guys going. And they got some players down coming up, hopefully this year, that are going to be exciting to watch. But as White Sox fans, I think we were just hoping that these guys would stay healthy, be productive, so you can flip them and get something in return for them. Like I was hoping Moncada and Jimenez were going to come and maybe get a competitor, get a good, decent players in return to build up our minor league systems, and that is not going to happen now. So it's like, where do you go from here now for this season? Because who are you going to trade now?
And this is where you wonder if where the curse stuff starts coming in. Because you're right, Coop. I mean, a big game Brandon Duplessis with a monster stat right there. 21 trips to the IL for Eloy Jimenez since 2019.
Yeah, I knew it was like 20 something. He was right on with that 21.
And like Brandon's point, 2019 he plays 122 games. 55 games in 2020. That's the COVID year, so he's pretty steady there. 55 games in 21. He played 84 games in 22, 120 last year, 3 so far this year. For whatever reason, we have to figure that out. And Sean, we were talking before the show. You bring up a good point too. All three of these guys, latest injuries come when they're hustling, going to first. You can't fault them for that. And weather in Chicago, April, does not help you, especially with hamstrings and things. But from your perspective, if you had to try to figure out any kind of root cause or any kind of semblance of why this keeps happening, what do you come up with?
I'm probably rolling with what Coop said here. Off-season training, not taking care of yourself, maybe not eating right. A lot of those things go into it. I mean, just running to first, pulling a hammy 3 times. I mean, that seems maybe he just has soft tissue. I mean, I don't know. It's really, really odd. It's as odd as Eloy Jimenez. I mean, he gets hurt catching fly balls in the outfield. I mean, it's very bizarre and it's almost unexplainable.
Yeah. And it's part of the mystery and enigma that is the Chicago White Sox right now. So Coop, we have a 2-10 ball club that's getting absolutely shellacked by the Reds tonight. I think last we saw was 61 or something. They're on pace to lose 140 games. Thankfully, I think they'll. I'll take the under on that. But for you, Coop, what right now for White Sox fans? What should we be focused on? What kind of hope is out there that we can focus on for the next 6 months here?
Well, there's always positivity. I'm a positive person, Cleet.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
there's always something positive and something you need to look forward to. And there's a couple of things I guess you could point out. This team, Garrett Crochet's been awesome so
Yeah.
far in his first couple of starts, and it's pretty cool to see a guy like that who was hurt too. Another player that was hurt, but a relief pitcher that had dynamite stuff to go into the role as a starting pitcher and do what he's doing right now is pretty remarkable. I was trying to think about some pitchers that have gone back and forth like that to do what he's doing, but he's doing it at a very high level. So I'm very interested. Every day he goes out to the mound, I'm interested to see how he does. Michael Soroka, the guy they got from Atlanta, his comeback story is pretty ridiculous too, because he had a really devastating injury and he was out for a long time. And you got to remember, before he went out, he was a great pitcher for the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
And he gets hurt, and he kind of just needed a reset for his career. So I feel like this is a perfect opportunity for him now to go out there. Now, I know his last start wasn't great, but I've been very impressed the way he started so far, his first couple of starts. So I like watching him out there, and I hope he does very well, and then they can hopefully move him on by June or July, and he can go like contend somewhere. So I like the way he's pitched so far. And then, I mean, offensively, the catcher, Lee, that they brought up, their young catcher, that they've got a lot of – you could see some promise in him, too. From what I've watched from him already, you could see some promise. He's good defensively. He's come up with some hits. And I think if you just keep him playing, I mean, Maldonado, what's he got? Like 2 hits the entire year so far. So I don't necessarily need. He was a stopgap for Lee, and I've liked what I've seen from him so far. So I think that's one of the players that they can build on. And then outside of that, man, I'm not quite sure. I mean, is Andrew Vaughn the everyday first baseman that we hope he is? I don't know the answer to that question. I feel like he's there, and they're trying to give him every opportunity to do that, but he's less than impressive for me so far since he's been in that role. And outside of that, I could really care less about anybody else in that field.
Sean, you're a guy who's great with odds. You're a guy who's great with the money. Everyone's saying this is a team that could possibly lose 120 games. And realistically, what do you think this White Sox team in year one of this rebuild, where do they finish at?
Where they have 63 wins last year, I want to say.
Let's see. Last year they lost 101.
101 games last year.
Yeah, so they're 59 and 101. Yeah,
59 and 101. Okay. Yeah, they could very well win 50 games this year. If I'm going off last year,
there's a chance to big 50. and Sean's going to go further. He says there's a chance they might actually win a couple series this season.
Guys, I got their schedule pulled up right now too.
I was going to ask you, Coop, really quick.
Yeah.
In some of your minor league system that you have, do you have faith in any of these guys, like a Colson Montgomery or this Edward Cuero, the third baseman? Excuse me,
Oscar Colas and Colson Montgomery. Yeah, I do. I have some, and then they got some pitchers down there too that they are trying to straighten. I know Strini was hurt. I think he was hurt. But they got a couple of guys that are trying to get their way to get up here too. So I've got some hope down there that they're getting this right. I think the one thing Chris Getz is pretty good at. I mean, we don't know what he's going to be like as a general manager. I mean, he just got into that position. But I know from his reputation is he's very good with development of players and putting them in the right position. So I think that's something that I'm confident in. And for him to be down there and running this and overlooking this right now, I do feel somewhat okay with that. So I think it's just, we kind of see that with our young catcher right now that I think has been okay. That you could see that there could be a good possible future with them. So we'll see what happens here by middle of the year. I think they're going to be coming sooner than that, though. It's funny, guys, because what's funny is that the Sox schedule is not really like they play the Reds, and I think the Reds are a pretty good team, so I think it's going to be hard to beat them. But then it's like the Royals and the Twins. The Phillies will be very tough because they're a good team, and then the Rays are good too. So
that Royals lineup can rake, man.
Yeah, the Royals do have a good lineup. Yes,
Bobby Witt Jr., fellas, he's
is
out on the sandbox for sure, without question.
And it's unfortunate because a lot of people that are fans of baseball probably don't even know who he is because he's on the Royals and they suck every year. But for baseball fans like us, when you go watch him play, he's legit, man. He's a 5-tool player everywhere around, man.
Yeah, you can see why the Royals have invested what 250 million in him long term, without question. Coop, Sean, when I look at the White Sox, where they are right now in the very early stages, the dawn of this rebuild, I see so many parallels to them and where the Blackhawks are, in year one of their rebuild. I think, of course, the big difference is the Sox have their centerpiece. They know who their franchise is for the next 10 years. The White Sox really don't. Like you said, Coop, you're looking like who's going to be the guy you build this thing around? Who's going to be the glue in the lining for years to come? You just don't know.
No. I don't think we're going to know that answer. But I mean, Colson Montgomery is a top 10 prospect in baseball in general. Like he's up there. I think he's been in the top 10 for the last year. I think he goes up and down a little bit. So that's the guy that, I mean, he's the one we want to see. He's the one that we want. He's a superstar that they tell us that he's going to be, and hopefully that he's going to be that shortstop that we want and take over that position. That's a very important position. Other than that, I just don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I think we got to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a long process. And hey, Southside Nation, we love you. We feel what you're going through. Obviously,
how much do you think how much do you guys think tickets are going to be by like June? If you wanted to go to a Sox game in June, I guess unless they're playing like the Yankees or something like that.
I put it this way. I think if you bring a friend, the Sox might give you $20.
The other day, I think they were giving away free food in the stadium, dollar tickets, free parking. It was pretty much a giveaway. Just please come out here. And I'm not exaggerating or talking smack. This was actually a thing.
Yeah, and for an extra $5, they'll put you in the bullpen.
You know what's interesting, guys, too, before we get off side. You know what's interesting is I think this like when you're really bad teams like this has an effect all over baseball, because I was talking to a really close friend of mine in St. Louis, diehard Cardinal fan, and the Sox play the Cardinals the first weekend of May. And I'm like, man, I think I'm going to come up there. Let's go to the Saturday game and stuff. What do tickets look like? And he goes, well, I think we're going to be able to get whatever we want, because the Cardinals they're okay. They're not great. And the Sox are terrible. And the Sox fans aren't going to go to that unless you live in St. Louis from Chicago. You'll go to that game. So I still want to go because I love Busch Stadium, but I just love going to Cardinals games. But
it's such a great answer. I say that as a Cubs fan. Wow.
It's one of the 5 best stadiums. I've gone to 14 ballparks. I put that in the top 5 as my favorite stadiums.
Yeah, it is tremendous what they've done that with the ballpark village, without question. Hey, fellas, before we move on from baseball, if I could, shameless plug here. The great Frank Thomas, White Sox Hall of Famer. Now we love him. We know him out here in Iowa now as the principal owner of the Field of Dreams. If anyone has anybody in the Chicago area, if you're free this weekend. Let me tell you, Big Hurt has something really cool here in Dubuque, Iowa. Tomorrow and Sunday, she has a conference called Picturing America's Pastime that will feature former Sox star pitcher Cal Eldred. And this will be at the Hotel Julie in Dubuque tomorrow. Then it will shift over to Frank's Field of Dreams at Dyersville, Iowa, about a half hour down Highway 20 on Sunday. It's going to trace the entire history of Major League Baseball over 150 years. It has over 100 artifacts on loan from the National Baseball Hall of Fame. So if you're looking for anything, folks, tickets are available for that. You can get tickets if you'd like to check it out at baseballhall.org. Also at the Dubuque Museum of Art tomorrow, where they have all the exhibits from Cooperstown. Very, very cool thing to check out, folks. One thing I didn't realize, Dubuque, Iowa, that was where the foundation of the American League, where Sox owner Charles Comiskey and the other American League owners in the early 1900s came up with the idea of the American League as we know it today. So great thing that Big Frank and the entire team at Field of Dreams is doing, called Picturing America's Pastime, baseball conference featuring all kinds of former MLB stars, baseball historians. Can't recommend it enough, folks. That will be Saturday and Sunday in Dubuque, Iowa. And of course, Sunday shifting to the Field of Dreams. Folks, you are listening to the voice of the Chicago sports fan, Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse, created, executive produced by the hardest working man bar none in sports podcasting. Brandon Trax Hyatt, big time show tonight. We got the great Sean Lugo here, the great American DJ Matt Cooper. I am Cleve Campbell. Fellas, let's go to the west side if we could really quick. Bulls Nation has just one question on its mind right now, fellas. Well, besides whether this team can shoot 50% in consecutive games, will there be playoff baseball or playoff basketball in Chicago this spring? Team owner Jerry Reinsdorf has made it known he's not betting on it, but the Bulls are. They are playing hard to the finish, as our great friend Scoreboard Childers just showed us. The Bulls win tonight, 129-127 over the Wizards. They've clinched a spot in the play-in tournament in a home court game next Wednesday, the 17th, against the Atlanta Hawks. Let's talk about the big million-dollar question. Let's straight off the gate, starting with you, Matt Cooper. Do the Chicago Bulls, can they fight their way out of the play-in tournament and somehow find a way to take on the Celtics as the number 8 seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs?
I think the good thing is they're playing Atlanta, who's really, really bad too. So,
yeah,
and they've had problems all year round. So yes, I do. I actually do. So listen, is anything going to surprise us next week against that? No, we have no idea. But I do think they can go beat Atlanta and then try to play their way to get destroyed by the Celtics in the first round.
Here's your prize. Congratulations.
It looks like the best. The Celtics look like the best team in the league. The Celtics look like the best team in the league too, by the way.
Yeah. They've got that Boston mojo back. Sean, what do you think? I mean, this team, they're playing the passion basketball. DeMar is he had 29 last night. I know it's the Pistons. I know it's the worst team in Pistons history, but this team is playing with a chip on its shoulder. I know they're still 3 games under 500, but is there still a puncher's fighting chance that this team could fight their way to the playoffs?
Sure, they could beat Atlanta, but I'm with Matt. They're going to get laid to waste by Boston.
Yeah.
So quick trip in. It's not a big deal, but I do like the direction the Bulls are headed. I mean, at least they're fighting and they're watchable. I mean, it's been a while. I really do like the development of Kobe White too. I mean,
so do I. I like watching Kobe White. I think this could be big for him too. I think this is why you want to go to the playoffs, so you could see guys like him develop even more and be in that high leverage situation playing against one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because it is definitely time to pay that man, show him the money, as Rod Tidwell would say. We know how Reinsdorf works. If he does not believe his team has the potential to win a championship, he's not going to invest in him. But is he laid without question, without a shadow of a doubt? Has Kobe White proven that Reinsdorf has to pay him and make him a feature part of this team going forward, guys?
I truly hope so. I mean, he's doing everything he can, from scoring, assisting, playing defense. I mean, he's definitely earned it. He's developed into, basically a franchise starting point guard.
Yeah.
I like that too. You said that about him, because I feel like if he's off on one game, he's going to do something special in each game to try to help the Bulls win. I mean, he's not a max contract player, but I think if you want to do anything with this team and try to make them competitive and try to continue to build on it, he's got to be part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Other big question too, obviously, DeRozan has outperformed his contract. He's playing just lights out basketball. Does DeRozan come back with this team next year? He's made it known he wants to be here. Or do we see DeMar in a Bulls jersey next year, fellas?
I don't know about that.
I was going to say, I'll say no too.
Yeah, going to be 35.
Yeah, that's the age. 31, maybe 35. I'm good.
But the way he's playing, though, you would think there would be a team that's going to be a playoff type bound team that would want somebody like him, and he can go somewhere for his end of his career to try to make one last run. Because I don't know what the Bulls are going to be next year. We didn't know what they were. Well, I think we all kind of had an idea what they were going to be this year, because they didn't really improve in the offseason, so they're kind of where they're at right now. I'm not surprised they're at that number 9 seed right now. So next year, if they blow some things up.
Yeah, it's a good point, Coop, because this is a team still at a crossroads. They're not bad enough to get in the lottery and tear everything down. They're not good enough where they're only a couple pieces away from being a contender. What direction do they go? What direction should they go next year, Sean?
They need to get a dude. They haven't had one. I mean, I guess Levine, but they've all had their deficiencies. I mean, can we find like a Tyrese Halliburton or something like that, a young up and coming franchise stud that can do everything? I think that's something. If the Bulls can add that, I think they'd be headed in the right direction. And I don't see it in this upcoming NBA draft. So you're going to have to make a move around the league if you're going to try and find that player.
Yeah, and they have to make a decision on their head coach too, Billy Donovan, who did a little flirting with the Kentucky job.
Yeah, he's not going to Kentucky anymore.
No, yeah, definitely not going to Kentucky anymore. And I feel for the young man who is going to Kentucky. But
Mr. Pope, good luck.
A great kid, Kentucky grad, national champion there. I know he's got his work cut out for him. If that team doesn't give him, if that school doesn't give him an NIL budget, fellas. Sean, is it time for new leadership? Billy Donovan, without question, we've seen that when he has the right personnel, can do things and take a team to the next level. But can he do much more than what he's already done with this Bulls team, given where they're at? And
I personally really do like Billy Donovan, and I had this discussion, I think yesterday or the day before. I just think maybe they failed around him, but
yeah,
they do have pieces, but I don't know that they've ever had enough. I don't really know. I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's not as good as I think he is as a coach and molding talent, but he does have this team in fighting for a playoff spot. I've always been a big Billy Donovan fan. I think he's a great coach, man. I really do.
So do I.
This is not working.
You gotta love the guy. He's class act. But I look at this team and I look at like Vinny Del Negro's old Bulls teams or Fred Hoiberg's old Bulls teams, playing that same type of 500 basketball. Not bad, not good. Win a couple games that you shouldn't. Lose way too many games that you shouldn't. And I think that's where we're at. Yeah. And the problem is now, fellas, as we're 26 years removed from the last dance. It doesn't make sense tearing it all down for another rebuild that you're going to wait 5 years for any results. What direction? I think that's the question. Nobody knows where they should go, and I think that starts with them.
Honestly, it's the worst run organization in the city. It's absolutely. Well, I guess the Sox are making a run for that.
Yeah, I was like, there's somebody competing with them on that one.
Sox might have a better direction. You know what? I don't know. I really don't know between those two.
Well, you're right on that, because I was just talking about Chris Getz and how confident I was on player development with him, and I think that's where his strong point is. Where's that with the Bulls? Like, what have they done? They're a number 9 seed here again. Like, they're in the worst position you can be in, because you're not going to have that high draft pick. You're going to be right there in the middle, and you got good enough players, but you don't have great players. You got some that could be. Kobe White could be very well 2 years from now. We could be talking about him as a stud player, but they don't have that. And I think this is way more on the front office than it is on the head coach.
Yeah, and that's the thing about, like you said, we're right where we were last year, and you wonder is this as good as it gets? Is this the new glass ceiling for this franchise? And I think that's really the frustrating thing. Like our good buddy Jay Grizz says, we were much better when Ball was healthy. And that Ball injury itself has become, you wonder, a curse because of what happened to Patrick Williams, what happened to Zach. It's just, man, it's frustrating. It really is, because you don't see that path, that clear-cut path to at least coming up with a blueprint on how to get better because of where they're at.
Yeah, and like I said, I just don't know drafting who you're going to pull out of the draft that's a franchise turner. I mean, I just don't see it. I mean,
I don't see it either.
Good players in this draft, but no franchise players in this draft.
So, folks, what we're telling you, if you the Last Dance is still available on Netflix if you want to see basketball at an elite level. Friends, you are watching the voice of the Chicago sports fan, Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. Sean Lugo, the Great American DJ, Matt Cooper in the house. Fellas, T-minus 13 days, and I say that because we are all ready for the draft to get here and for the Bears to unveil what direction they are going to be headed. Want to get both of your thoughts. Both of you have studied NFL drafts. You've watched drafts your whole life. Is your gut feeling that the Bears right now, Ryan Poles and his team, obviously they have their plan with what they want to do at the top of the draft. They have a pretty good idea of prospects they're looking at in 9. At this point, guys, where you're at, there's so many wild cards of people moving up, people moving down, players becoming available. What do you sense for both of you? How big do you think the Bears draft plan outside of Caleb at 1 is still wide open, or do you think if the guys that they have an idea are going to be there, they've already made decisions on what they want to do with those 4 picks?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting draft because if there's going to be 4 quarterbacks going in the first top 10 picks, which it looks like that could very well happen, you're going to have these players starting to fall into place now. And I don't think you trade that number 9 pick. I think there's too many good players in the top 10 right there, especially with the receivers, with the offensive linemen. I mean, this is a strong receivers and lineman draft. And if you have one of those if you have an alt that falls down to you, and if you have one of these stud receivers that haven't been taken yet, I think you do not trade, and you have to stick with that plan and take a playmaker.
Mm-hmm.
A playmaker, you mean a wide receiver instead of Joe Alt? Would that what you refer? Yeah. Okay.
One of them, yes.
Well, I was actually having this discussion at 9 yesterday with Mr. Kyle here in Sandman. If we had Roman Duze at 9 and we had Alt at 9, which way do you go? Or just hypothetically speaking, Malik Neighbors fell to 9 and you had Joe Alt, and it was receivers both ways. I think it is time to get some playmakers in Chicago. You know, we need something. Keenan Allen's going to probably be here 1 year. I mean, maybe we'll get a second year out of him, but we'll worry about that in 365. But I'd be okay. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there's a way that the Bears could figure out a way to move up and get Marvin Harrison. You wind up with Williams and Harrison Jr. I think you won the draft, and I don't think you have to worry about any other picks. But
yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's there's going to be a lot of variables, guys, and I mean, we know there's years where there's a lot of trade activity, teams moving up trying to get their guys. I get a sense this is going to be one of those drafts. I can see a lot of moves in the first round and all too. But with all that being said, do you guys, both of you, believe if Ryan Poles, he's a stick to your gun type of guy? I think he's got his guys he wants. If he has to move up or he has to do some negotiating to get there, he will do it. I just don't see this team. Gosh, I want to say that they're going to make a move to try to move up to get Marvin Harrison Jr. I do want to say that. I just don't see that happening. What do you guys think? I mean,
I don't either.
He as aggressive as he's been in the past on draft night?
I think it's a hypothetical for me. I think it's more of a dream, but you can't say with Ryan Poles it's out of the realm of possibility because this guy pulls rabbits out of hats. But it's more likely we wind up with a Duze at 9. And I'll be honest, with as much 13 personnel as Waldron likes to take, I mean, taking Brock Bowers at 9 wouldn't be. I wouldn't shake a stick at that either, man. I really, really love that kid.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, drafting him that high. I'm a big fan of his too. See, I think what I'm thinking, I think a lot of these receivers are going to go pretty fast in the first before they get to the Bears pick. I don't love our offensive line though. I like it, but I don't love it. I still have a lot of questions. I still have questions about Braxton Jones. I still have questions about the health of our guards in our signing last year of Davis. Like I don't know. Like I hope everything goes well. So that's why I'm saying, like, if this is a great draft for wide receivers, by the way, too. There's 26 wide receivers in this draft, and it's deep. So I think if you can go find one of those two, if one of those stud receivers if those stud receivers that we're talking about are gone already, and you got that offensive lineman, that tackle that's right there, that's why I think I would lean towards that. But you also don't want to pass up on Oduze that if he's there for you as well. So I think it's a hard predicament, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out there because I think they still have some needs right there to fix up front.
100. I agree 100%. I do. I mean, I'm not all out. I wouldn't be upset if we wound up taking Joe Alt there because a guy like Xavier Legette, I really do like him. And for some reason, a lot of people are stopped talking about him, got off him a little bit. And I mean, God, does that guy not remind you of Calvin Johnson when you see him play out on the field?
Oh, dude, that dude's a monster, man.
Yeah, like I do like Troy Franklin out of Oregon too. So I do think there's some room to take that lockdown left tackle because if you get Darnell Wright pairing with Joe Alt and you could still get somebody later, oh my God, you'd have 2 lockdown tackles for 10 years?
Oh, it'd be a beautiful thing. If it could come to fruition, Sean, absolutely. Hey, folks, we are going to be, we know we're hitting crunch time here with the countdown to the draft this Monday, 8 o'clock. Chicago sports media superstar David Kaplan with the hardest working man in sports podcasting, Brandon Trax Hyatt, this Monday night, 8 p.m. on Monsters. Be sure to tune in. Cap, Cap and Trax will cover every element of what the we figure the Bears will be doing in the draft later this month. As you know, David Kaplan, he knows this team, this organization, its tendencies, what it needs to do, what's probably most likely to do. So that is must-watch television or podcasting this Monday at 8 o'clock. Brandon Trax Hyatt and David Kaplan right here on the voice of the Chicago sports fan, Monsters of the Madhouse. Fellas, so much going on. It's a fun time of year. We got the Masters going on down in Augusta. We just wrapped up the greatest WrestleMania of all time, as the three of us were talking about before the show. For you, what's your favorite part about this time of the year? I mean, obviously, we're not going to be able to talk about deep Bears or Blackhawks playoff runs, but what's the best part about being a sports fan in Chicago in the springtime?
For me, growing up as a kid, man, where I grew up right down the street from the old Comiskey Park, and my dad pulling me out of school to go to games, to go to day games. So for me, it's always going to be baseball. As I still, as bad as we're 2-11 right now, and this is one of the worst looking Sox teams I've probably seen in my lifetime already in the first month of the season. But there's still something special about that. There's something special where I could, even tomorrow, when I get done doing my running around, I still like to put the baseball games on. I'll just go through the MLB package and try to find different games that I want to, the ones that look competitive to me, or if there's a pitcher or something I want to watch, I'll just sit there and watch baseball all day long. And it's still with me. I think the draft too has a lot to do with that. And you know what's funny, guys? I used to never get excited about the draft. To me, it was just like, okay, whatever. I'll just watch some of it. But I feel like what the NFL has done by going to all these different cities every year and just kind of building it up, and it makes it feel like special. They've made it feel special to me. And this has only happened to me for like the last couple of years, because now I'm like, I just moved down here to Tennessee, and I'm in Knoxville. I'm going to go to the Bears place down. It's weird. It's a Bears and Browns bar combined. So it's going to be us Bears, Chicago people, and Cleveland people on the other side. And we're going to be sitting there hanging out and watching the draft and having some drinks, man. And I can't wait, because it's going to be so much fun, and there's going to be a lot of excitement there.
Yeah, it's definitely different than the draft, Sean, that we grew up with. Where it was a big thing still too, but for the most part, it was just like on Saturday and Sunday. Now, like Coop said, they followed the WrestleMania model. They got cities bidding for this. It goes around the country. You're getting crowds of 250, 300,000. I mean, all for people to go watch, the commissioner read a list of names. I mean,
it's crazy.
The NFL marketing team is the greatest sports marketing team ever assembled on top of the face of the earth.
100%.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting, fellas. And as we said, folks, when we get to draft week, Brandon Trax Hyatt will have covered from A to Z, shows all week long. We will, of course, have live coverage on draft night Thursday, and follow-up show also on Friday as well. So much big stuff going up here on Chicago Sports Podcast. Fellas, this has been so much fun. Before we call the night, anyone have any final thoughts, anything they like to bring up before we head out of town?
Yeah, I'm tired of my I lived in Cincinnati for 6 years, so I'm sick of my Reds friends here blowing my phone up. Tell me why do the White Sox suck so bad? And I don't have answers for them. I haven't responded to anybody yet, so I got some responding to do here in just a little bit. So it's tough though, man, because we get so excited for opening day, and then the Cubs look like they're going to be. I mean, I know where they're at right now, but they're going to be a very good team here by the end. They have a great roster with a good manager. We don't. The White Sox don't. They're going to be terrible, and you don't know what the future is. So it's kind of disappointing that already in April, a couple of weeks in. I mean, I'll still watch games, but I have no interest of going out. Like if I come home at nighttime and they're on, and I'm like, I'm not going to be that must watch anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Sean too, and we've been there. I mean, you and I have dealt with Cubs season where we started. I remember 1997, we started 0-14 out of the gate. The season was done. The season was done by mid-April. Is there any harder sport? I know football is a close second for me, but is there only harder sport to stay passionate about when your team's struggling like baseball because it's such a 7-month grind?
Hockey.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
It's been tough watching the Hawks.
We've learned that the hard way without question.
Yeah, no doubt. But they're going to be turning. They're going to be turning this ship around pretty soon too. I have a lot of faith in that organization. They're doing the right thing.
Let's hope there's better times, more winning times in store for the Blackhawks, all of Chicago sports teams. Fellas, this has been so much fun. Thanks so much for joining us, folks. Everybody who chimed in, our great best fans in all of sports sports podcasting. Stephanie, Jay Grizz, everyone so far. Brandon Big Game DePlacy with great stats for us. Patty, we love you. Thank you for checking in. So much fun being back here with you, folks. We will be back with you next Friday night, 8:30 p.m. Same bad time, same bad channel, right here on the voice of the Chicago sports fan, Monsters of the Madhouse. We are proudly brought to you, folks, by North Stadium Club, Bridges Scoreboard, Budget Jet Cars, Serendipity Ice Cream Parlor, TC's World of Wonders, home of the best values in online sports merchandise, and of course the number one name in fantasy sports, Underdog Fantasy. We had such a great time being with you tonight, fellas. Have a great weekend. Until we meet again, ladies and gentlemen, keep living life like Steve Michael with everything you've got. Thanks for joining us, everyone. This has been Monsters of the Madhouse.